Hello. So let's go ahead and review the Scarlet Ibis. I'm going to do pages 1 through 9 for you right now. I'm going to do my absolute best to keep an eye on the time. So, in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and set my timer here real quick because I don't know where my time is on Screencastify. So, I'm going to set my timer, and when it beeps, then that will be my reminder to really uh, finish things up. So, here we go. It was the clove of seasons. Clove means dividing, and so we have this time frame. And in the exposition, you get time. So if you want to add that to your notes, you absolutely could do that for exposition. It was the clove of seasons. That means it wasn't quite, summer wasn't quite over, and fall and autumn hadn't quite yet started. Kind of like right now, the end of August, beginning of September, we are in the clove of seasons. It was the clove of seasons that the ibis lit, and lit means landed. So if you look at the sentence this way, it was in the clove of seasons that the ibis bird landed in the tree. So the time frame that we are looking at starts with it. The most important idea here is happening during this time period when the bird came. Okay? We continue reading here, and we find that he says, but sometimes like right now. So we have this different time period, was past tense versus now present tense. Okay? Some of the other words that give me a time frame are that summer has long since fled, time has had its way. So it was, a lot of time has passed, and right now. So when I read this, I'm getting a sense of the change of time period. We start with it was past tense, long time has passed, and right now. So we have this transition of time, this spreading out of time, which to me says very simply, I remember, which is convenient because we get this very next passage says, I remember Doodle. If I can sum up, this first page basically says, a long time ago, a scarlet ibis landed in our tree. It was a long time ago, and many, many years have passed since then. But sometimes, like right now when I'm telling this to you, me, as an older grown man, I remember Doodle. And I don't know who Doodle is yet, and I don't even know who the I is yet. In fact, we never get a name for the narrator. It's simply the narrator, and we learn very quickly that the narrator is Doodle's older brother. And so Doodle is a boy, which perfect because we now come down and say that Doodle was nice crazy, which I think is kind of funny. He's not insane crazy, he's nice crazy. Like a goofy, funny person is what makes me think about it. Another thing to note here, he was born when I was 6, so the narrator was 6. You're always going to want to keep that in mind when Doodle was born. So there's a 6-year difference. Anytime we get an age for Doodle, add 6, you get an age for the narrator. And we're going to see their ages progress throughout this short story. So you can add that to your annotations if you need to. Sadly, everyone thought Doodle was going to die. All right, this is the first mention we get of death here, which is sad. So sad, in fact, that the family builds a coffin for him. And I don't know if you've experienced the death of a young brother or sister or a niece or a nephew, and it would be terribly tragic. And so here they have this tiny baby born in an unhealthy way. So unhealthy, in fact, that they expect this little baby to die and they build him a coffin. Fortunately, however, as we continue, he didn't die. All right? But instead, Mama says he might not, Mama says he might not be all there. And we have to understand what this all there phrase means. We're talking about the mind, his mental capabilities. So William Armstrong, whom we know as Doodle, doesn't die. But instead, Mama says he didn't die, but he might grow up with serious mental disabilities. He might not be all there. So when you read this sentence, be very careful because we get this mama crying in the middle of it. He might not, she sobbed. He might not be all there, she's telling to her son. All right, well, now our narrator, who wanted this brother, has a brother who is possibly mentally handicapped, okay, and an invalid, with physical disabilities, with mental disabilities. So, of course, this 6-year-old boy, remember, he's only 6, this 6-year-old boy begins to make plans to kill Doodle. He's going to smother him with a pillow. Now, you might say, how horrible, and it is horrible. I'm not trying to say that murdering your brother is acceptable, but he's 6. And so you have to look at it through the mentality of a 6-year-old. What does a 6-year-old want? A brother to play with. What does he get? A brother that just simply lies on the floor and will never develop into anything. And so, all right, I'm going to get rid of him. And you can almost see the 6-year-old grabbing a pillow and walking in to the baby's nursery. All right, so what is the conflict here? It is not that he was going to kill his brother. The conflict is what the narrator wanted versus what the narrator got. He wanted a brother to play with. He got an invalid that he can't play with. So far, that is the conflict. That's what makes the narrator want to kill Doodle. I wanted this. I got this. Not good enough. That's the conflict. I'm going to kill Doodle because I didn't get what I wanted. Okay? It's that the conflict so far is in who Doodle is, this invalid brother. All right. The story continues. Okay? And he doesn't, in fact, kill him. In fact, the narrator goes in to see Baby Doodle, and Baby Doodle smiles at the narrator. And our narrator goes, he is all there. My little brother is mentally all there, and I know because he looked right at me, his older brother. He recognized my face, and he smiled a hello smile to me, the big brother. So you saw how that conflict was there a moment ago, and poof, that conflict seems to have evaporated because of that smile. Okay? All right. Now, Doodle is 2, which makes our narrator how old? 2 plus 6, 8. Right? Our narrator is now 8 years old, and Doodle is 2. Okay? And if you've ever had a 2-year-old, you know that they're called the terrible 2s because 2-year-olds are insane demon creatures. And if you have a younger brother or sister or a niece or a nephew, and they are 2, you know that they are the craziest, wildest animals ever. But if we look at this description of Doodle, you will see that he doesn't do anything. He just lies around. Okay? He tried and push himself up. He couldn't. Here's the point. Doodle is still physically disabled. He is way slowed down in terms of his development physically. All right. And then it was his 3rd winter. Always look for these time clues. So the paragraph started with him being 2, and now he's 3, making our narrator 3 plus 6 is 9. So our narrator is also grown. Okay. All right. I wanted to actually go back just a step and say, I can see Mama watching him, her hand pressed tight across her mouth, her eyes wide and unblinking. This is not particularly good characterization of mother. Most mothers would be very emotional in this situation, where their tiny little baby is trying to move and he can't, and his face gets all red. Mama is probably crying out of sadness, out of just overwhelming emotion. So not a lot of good characterization of Mama. But what we do get here is great imagery. I can totally imagine this mama standing, watching her little baby boy try and do something that actually might kill him. She's watching him try and move and do physical activity that's so difficult. All right, so not great characterization, but certainly a little bit of imagery, and we're trying to look out for things like that. All right. But then we get this phrase. It was the first time he became one of us. So when Doodle was 3, they kind of realized, you know what? He's growing. He's getting stronger. He's getting more and more able to do things. And as before this baby would lay still, this 3-year-old is now participating and living. And he starts to crawl. And that's where we get the name Doodle, which is kind of cute. All right. So leading us to some characterization. Maybe you noticed this. And I think there's 2 things going on here. Renaming my brother was perhaps the kindest thing I ever did for him because nobody expects much for someone called Doodle. Let's look at the first part. Renaming him was the kindest thing I ever did. And you're like, all right, cool. Kindness. I like kindness. Doing something kind for your little brother is certainly a good thing, right? Okay. And William Armstrong was just too big of a name for this cute little baby. All right, so maybe you're like, cool, good characterization. The narrator's a good guy. But then look at the second half. Because nobody expects much from someone called Doodle. And that kind of twists my understanding just a little bit. Okay, well, he gave him a nickname. It's cute. It's fun. Everybody calls him Doodle. Mom and Dad aren't going to call him Doodle out of meanness. So we know that there's love in the nickname. But then we also get this understanding, well, it's kind of a name because he's a lame person and nobody expects much from him. And so everyone can call him Doodle for the rest of his life and no one's going to have high expectations for him. So maybe there's just a slight tinge of meanness in that. My point is this, it complicates the characterization. My understanding of the narrator is that, yeah, he's good. He loves his brother. He's there. He's all there. But he was also going to kill him with a pillow. He gives him a nickname that everyone loves and uses. But it was kind of because nobody expects anything out of him. So I keep seeing these 2 things. And it takes me back to that conflict. What the brother wants versus what the narrator got. Right? Okay. Taking us down here to he was a burden in many ways. And of course, a burden is something that slows you down, a weight, something that you've got to deal with that you don't really want to deal with. Okay. So Doodle is a burden. And you know what? Taking care of a brother who can't physically do things, who is mentally underdeveloped, yeah, that would be a burden. Caring for another person is always a burden. All right. Okay, now, I have 2 boys, and the other day I walked into their bedrooms, and they were just punching each other, just slugging it out. They're 4 years apart. And I said, what are you guys doing? Why are you fighting? And they look at me. We're not fighting. We're playing punch. You're playing punch each other. Yeah, we're playing punch each other. Ugh, boys. And just that's how boys are. Boys are stupid. Boys are violent and aggressive. And so our narrator, in order to get his younger brother not to tag along with him, tries to be wild and crazy. He takes him in this wagon and he's all over the place and he almost falls out. And you know what Doodle does? He laughs and he says, do it again. That was fun, because that's how boys are. So the narrator takes him out and tries to be wild with him. And Doodle just loves it. And he takes it. All right. We are, in a minute, going to come back to the symbolism here of the coffin and the go-kart. But just want to point that out so you can remind me later. All right. And then Doodle begins to cry, and I see this as some characterization. The narrator takes him to Old Woman Swamp. It's just the name of a swamp. It just is a kind of, think of it as like a pond, right? We don't have swamps here in California, not really. But think of it as a pond. And this is the most beautiful place our narrator knows. And Doodle begins to cry. Why are you crying? It's so pretty. What does that tell you about his character? It tells me that Doodle is a sweet, sensitive child who appreciates the opportunity to be here. He loves the beauty of it. He's just... All right. Now, what kind of person is the narrator? I'm going to say he's a conflicted person. I'm conflicted. He does some good things. He does some bad things. He takes his brother to the most beautiful place he knows. Little brother Doodle, this is the best I have to offer you. I want you to share it with me. That's a good thing. That's my timer. All right, good, because we're getting pretty close. Moving right along. So the characterization there of the two characters, the narrator's a little bit of a conflicted character for me. He does some good things, but he also does some bad things. All right. So, which takes us to what I think is one of the most important, probably the most important line in this entire story. There is within me a knot of cruelty born by the stream of love. Think about that. A knot of cruelty which goes right by the stream of love. So if we think metaphorically of these as rivers, okay? And sometimes we have evil that flows right next to our love. Think about it. Who are the people that we are often the meanest to? We are often the meanest to our moms and dads and our brothers and sisters, the people we live with day in and day out, the people we love tremendously, the people we would be devastated if they died, but we say horrible, mean, wrong things to them. And so if we think of the things that leave us as two rivers, kindness and love, and they flow right next to each other, right, as we experience relationship with other people. And so our narrator says, within me, there's a stream of cruelty and a stream of love. And at times, I was mean to Doodle. Well, we know at times you're mean to Doodle. We've seen multiple times already that you've been mean to Doodle. But we've also seen the love you shared with Doodle. All right. Then, of course, we have this parenthetical statement. And I have seen it in others. Because you know what? The author, not the narrator, the author is now speaking to you. Because he knows you are loving and you are cruel. And sometimes you are the same thing to the same people. To your brother, you are loving, and then to your brother, you are cruel. And he knows it, and he's seen it in you. Ouch. All right. We have the symbolism of the casket. Again, we will return back to the symbolism later. All right. I want to make sure I clarify this just in case, because we do know that Doodle is physically disabled, but he doesn't actually become entirely paralyzed. He is paralyzed with fear. So critical readers here will recognize that the narrator made Doodle do something scary, and Doodle got so scared, he's paralyzed in fear. Not that he physically is paralyzed here, but he gets so scared he can't move. Okay? Doodle, go touch your coffin. I don't want to. Go touch it. I don't want to. You're going to touch it. Because there's that cruelty, right? Doodle becomes paralyzed with fear. We get another time frame here. Doodle was 5 years old, meaning our narrator is 11 here. So we see the time progressing. Okay? All right. Here's another super important line. I did not know then that pride is a wonderful, terrible thing, a seed that bears two vines, life and death. And we've seen multiple mentions of death at the beginning when Doodle was going to die, but he didn't. And here's this idea of pride and how pride can warp and twist. Pride can make us do good things. Pride can make us feel good about ourselves, but pride can also lead to our downfall. Our pride in ourselves that becomes too much arrogance can lead to horrible ends. Okay, so that's a little bit of foreshadowing. We're going to come back to that later. All right, meaning we are very close to the end of this video. This is such a beautiful paragraph. As a father, I love it. As a reader, I love it. It's just really sweet. our narrator has been helping Doodle learn to walk. And it's been failure after failure after failure. And suddenly it's successful. And our narrator and a Doodle are right there and they can hug each other and they're so happy. And so here's this idea of pride, right? Who is the narrator doing this for? What was the conflict? What the narrator wanted versus what the narrator got. Well, here he's trying to help Doodle walk, and Doodle can't, and Doodle can't, and Doodle can't. And then Doodle can. And that's a good thing. The narrator did a good thing. The narrator helped his brother walk. But why did the narrator do it? Because the narrator was embarrassed over his invalid brother. So there's that conflict again. Doing good things for kind of the wrong reasons. Okay? That pride, which can be a good thing and make us do good things, can help motivate us, can overwhelm us and cause us to do wrong things. All right. And then it leads to kind of one of the best moments of this story. They finally are able to get him to walk. Make sure I'm on the right page here. Yep. Doodle walks in front of everybody. What a special surprise. How good this is. The narrator is successful in helping his brother do something important, walking. Doodle is successful. He can walk now. They thought he was going to die first. They thought he wasn't even all there mentally. And now he's there mentally and he's there physically. It took him a while, but he can walk. He can walk. What a joy. Mommy and Daddy are dancing around the house and everyone's so happy and Aunt Nicey is going, yay. And then we come to this. Why are you crying? And the narrator doesn't admit it. He says he can't even say it, but he knows that he helped Doodle walk only because he was ashamed of having a crippled brother. There's that conflict. What he wanted versus what he got. He does some good things to help Doodle out, but kind of for the wrong reasons. But they're good things. These are really good things. And so as a reader, I'm still really kind of conflicted. I don't know what to think about the narrator. I kind of like what he does, and he's nice to Doodle, and he does good things with him, and they have good times and good memories and good experiences. But there's also the bad things. And every one of you who has a brother or sister has probably experienced similar things. Good times and bad times. You've done good things and loving things, and you've done bad and horrible things. All right, that's going to end it there for part 1. So hopefully that helped explain some of the story to you. All right then, ladies and gents, that's it. I'm done. End of part 1.